What is going on, everybody? So it is exciting. We have a new release coming from OMTECH. It is their new Pro line. So I want to jump into this, scroll through everything that they're showing as features, and also be able to talk from my firsthand experience since I have the 150 watt hybrid OMTECH Pro here in my garage. So let's jump into it, take a look at what they've got going on, and let's talk more. All right, so starting off, we get to the landing page here, which I will link in the description so that way you guys can find it nice and easy. Lots of flashy videos, things going on, and one sexy machine. So the meat and potatoes is down here. So first off, they have the 3655 hybrid and the 2440. So the hybrid is going to be your 150 watt machine, and hybrid means that it is a CO2 laser with metal cutting capabilities. We'll get into what that means more a little bit later. And then the 2440 is going to come in two options, which is an 80 watt and a 100 watt. But these are the bed sizes. So 3655 and 2440 for the 80 watt and 100 watt. So great bed sizes. Granted, this is the one that I got and I wanted because it's got a big enough bed to do a full sheet of plywood or a full width of plywood. That's what I'm using, the dimensions I use often. So it was perfect for me. So the specs here are almost identical as you go through, other than bed size and power, engraving speed. These are both equipped with the Servo stepper motors, so you're looking at 1,200 millimeters a second. So 1,200 millimeters a second on both machines that you can get up to. Keep in mind, obviously, those are fast speeds. And depending on what materials you're working on and what your results are that you're looking for, you may not use this 1200 millimeters a second all the time. It's unrealistic, especially if you're working with wood and you want a dark engraving. Throwing all that speed all the time, it may not give you the look that you're looking for. So keep that in mind. But yes, it can go that fast, and I've tested it myself. It will go and it will do a clean engraving. But whether it's light, dark, all that kind of stuff, that's where you have to go into your settings and figure that out. Here it's showing metal cutting versus non-metal cutting. Granted, obviously this applies over here. This doesn't apply over here. So you can get up to 1.5 millimeters metal cutting depth is what we're seeing. I did some testing this morning and I was able to cut metal. It was an 18 gauge stainless steel and it came out pretty clean. So that is pretty accurate. You can cut metal, and it was probably a millimeter or plus some. Metal cutting, or so the non-metal cutting, yeah, 40 millimeters. I was able to use the 150 watt and I cut some pretty thick stuff. I cut through a 2x4. I also cut through 3/4 MDF. So depending on what it is that you're cutting, that 40 millimeters, I mean, it seems like a lot to me, but I doubt that you're going to be cutting that kind of stuff all the time. And it needs to be something that is, obviously a hardwood or like a solid wood is going to cut better than a plywood with a bunch of glue stacked up in there. Glue hates lasers, lasers hate glue. So keep that in mind when you look at these numbers. Um, then you come down, you look at the beds. So the 150 watt, it comes with a sawtooth bed and an aluminum bed. So, or actually knives is what they're called. And the sawtooth is for the metal operations, and the aluminum is for all of your non-metal operations. Granted, it's a little bit harder to hold down warped sheet goods if you're using this type of bed. Honeycombs with magnets is usually a lot easier. Granted, I'm figuring out how to work around this and coming up with clamps to clamp down to the knives. So it's a work in progress. It's starting to make sense to me. Granted, as far as keeping the underside and that flash of whatever's underneath there, keeping that clean on the backside of your materials, the sawtooth, or sorry, not the sawtooth, but the aluminum knives, that is golden. Like that, it leaves little to no marring or flashback on the back of the items. The honeycomb, that's always something that ends up happening. You know, if you don't have your settings dialed in perfectly, something's going on, like it flashes back off of that bed and it causes issues. But you'll see that it comes with a honeycomb and it also comes with aluminum knives that sit underneath the bed. So I did request, I went to OMTECH and I said, hey, are we going to be able to have a honeycomb for the 150 watt? So we'll see what they say. But it was something that I requested. Both use, they have an autofocus and red dot alignment is what it says. It's actually an integrated piece on the end of the tube that is shooting the laser beam. So it's not like your traditional beam combiner that's shooting a beam into a mirror and sending that out. It's actually coming right off the end of the tube. So when you're using this red dot for alignment, like actually aligning the beam of your machine, it actually is a lot more helpful than what we've seen in previous models. So that's something that I did use, and I was able to aid me in, checking any alignment stuff and actually doing pulses to see if they matched. It came out pretty dang close. The water chillers. So the water chiller is built into the machine, but it's not a cheap chintzy water. Like this is an industry grade SNA chiller that is in my machine that I'm looking at, earlier this morning. So it is a 5200. So it has worked just as good or better than any of my other 5200 chillers or 5202 that I have on some of the other machines. So it is nice. And this statement right here of saving space, it is going to be nice that it's not sitting next to my laser and it's actually integrated into it and it's out of the way. So that will be nice. Four-way pass through with this big old bed. I don't know how often I'll use it, but it may be nice. It does have doors on all the sides, and it is a pretty seamless slide straight into the bed, depending on the thickness of the material and where the head and all that stuff is sitting. So definitely, it can be nice, especially if you're working with a 2440 and you have those sheets that are a little bit bigger. You can slide them through the machine and it's less waste in the long run. All right, this part here is misconceiving because this right here, so it's saying for the 150 watt that it is most compatible with LaserCAD software. Made this statement because this is coming with a Trosen controller, and it's great. It works well. It does everything that I've needed, and the software that is made for the Trosen controller is LaserCAD. It works with Lightburn. I've been using Lightburn with it since I got it, and I've had no issues. So there are a little bit of differences between Lightburn on a Trosen controller and Lightburn on a Ruida controller. There are features that you're not able to grab, but you just have to use the controller to enable, like, for example, the rotary. All of the rotary setup is done on the controller rather than Lightburn. So it's just different. Not bad, just different. So there's those. I questioning this, the Wi-Fi connection and that part. I know I could set it up Wi-Fi using an external device, but I was not seeing Wi-Fi connection for the Trosen controller. I can't speak for the Ruida controller that they're going to put in the 2440. So that's where I kind of stand on that. So let's jump in and let's look at all the features. I actually have a flyer from OMTECH of the specs for the 150 watt. And they will be very similar, other than when we talk about metal stuff, they'll be very similar on the 2440, the 80, and 100. So here is the laser head. Granted, when you go and look at this one, you can see right here, there's this slide out. This is where your lenses live. So this unscrews here, pulls out. You have the lenses in there. You can clean them, change them, whatever you need to do. You can see this brake here and this box on the side. This is the setup for the metal cutting operations. So you have the ability to lower the head with a motor and it has a follow feature. But so this is non-metal nozzle. This is metal nozzle. So you can see even they've got wood there and they've got metal here. So what you do is you're able to swap these out, and this metal head, it actually is able to sense a current between the metal and the nozzle, and it tells you whether you're touching or not. So that is what you have to set up when you're ready to do that. The actual head assembly for the 100 watt and 80 watt will look much more condensed. There won't be like this break here, and everything will be like one solid piece all the way down, because there is not a motor that's moving this head up and down during the metal operations, because it can't do that. Something else that's new is, a very big indicator on the front of the machine. You have green, blue, red as far as your status of what's going on. Red, like, hey, something is off and you're not able to operate the machine. Like if you hit start, it will not start. Blue, it's just kind of in waiting. It's standby mode. Green, it's actually running in operation. So this helps give you indicators that if one of your sensors is tripped or whatever, like, you're in red, you're not going to be able to operate the machine. You need to go check it. And usually it will throw a code on, or an error on the controller if you're trying to do that and you're actually trying to start the machine while it's in this mode. One thing that they did upgrade, or at least like the layout of the air exhaust system, is that there are actually slots across the back and then actual ducts down below the bed as well. So there's two areas that are trying to pull the exhaust out. And the nice thing is the ones that are below, it works really well for when you're cutting. And the one that's above, back behind the bed, works really well when you're engraving, because it's pulling it off the top. So it's using both of those, and they come together in the back of the machine, and it's sent out with a big centrifugal fan. So I'm on the fence about the fan. I might look into getting like there is a 10-inch inline fan from AC Infinity. So AC Infinity, like I would do a reducer from a 6-inch to a 10-inch and hook that up to that fan and potentially use that, because the centrifugal fan it's louder. And so we'll see what I think about that as we continue on in its use. So here's where it's talking about the dual work beds. So you have aluminum knives, and then you have these sawtooths. So the aluminum is for your wood stuff. The sawtooth is going to be for your metal. Ideally is what those two are for. You could use them for either one. Honestly, I don't know that it would matter. I think the aluminum, it's because aluminum is reflective. And so when you're trying to do metal cutting stuff, it will reflect that beam off, where the steel will actually, it will absorb more into it as it tries to cut through the steel. So, um, talking about lenses that are, US based, um, servo motors. So these servo motors, this is what makes things go fast and makes your acceleration faster. So the servo motors, this is the big thing for me, because I always try and max out my machines speeds as much as possible. But like I said earlier, speed and going as fast as you possibly can doesn't always equate to the look that you're looking for. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you're understanding, like, hey, I can't just jump into this machine, run 1200 millimeters a second, and expect that I'm gonna have a nice dark engraving like I always had on, X other machine. So there's definitely things that you have to play with to try and get the look that you're looking for. But speed is there, and you can see it. And the quality, and the nice thing about the servo motors is that they're made to not skip steps. Like they're built to go these speeds. So if you were trying to do it on a different machine and it was just using traditional stepper motors, you were skipping steps, things would move, things would shift, there are problems there. So, and actually in this picture, you can see, so these slots back here, these are the slots for the upper air exhaust. So that's where it would pull off the bed and actually bring that back. And you can see them back here too. So the safety features. So a lot of this stuff is already part of the other models. Like there's water protect on the other machines. There's air assist on the other machines. There's e-stop. There's cover protection. So the thing about the air assist, they've actually included a sensor for the air in some of the newer models and in this Pro line. And the problem is that people were having issues and if they didn't turn on their air or their air got clogged or whatever, they were having problems and potentially, a fire hazard comes in there. So now with this air assist, it's kind of like a controller. It senses airflow. If it's not getting airflow, it's going to stop your machine. So you can adjust it. You can make some tweaks to it because I know for me, there are things that I like to do with no air. So I'm going to have to work around this at times. But this is a safety feature and it's there for a reason. Okay, the rails. The rails are awesome. On the current machines that are out, the rails are exposed. So you can actually see the guide rail that is right on top or the front of the rail itself. Um, and so these are actually enclosed inside of a C-beam. So that way they are out of way. They're not going to catch anything. Nothing's going to get in the way of them. And they should stay cleaner. Granted, you still need to do your maintenance and make sure that you're, oiling these, greasing these, whatever. But it's definitely much cleaner. And in this picture, it doesn't show it, but there are integrated lights that are across the front and on the insides of each of these rails. It's super nice. Now you don't need to do any light upgrades, like none of that stuff. We already talked about this a little bit, but the built-in chiller. This is not the chiller that's in it. This is just a picture. But it does have an S&A, at least from the machine that I have. There is an S&A chiller built into the back of the machine that is running all the stuff. And honestly, the controls and setting it up for, constant mode and all that stuff, it was super easy. I literally just turned down the temperature, hit set, and it was done. So there wasn't a whole lot of confusing, how do I do this? So built-in autofocus for autofocus lovers, it works. I've used it and it uses the head and it actually plunges up into it, triggers the sensor, it comes back down to whatever you set it to. So it works and I don't, I'm a, I love the feel of making sure that I'm actually in focus. So I have all of my step gauges, but the autofocus does work and it's very similar to all of the new models that have the integrated autofocus feature into the head. So just looking through this real quick. So these are some more of the specs. It talks about the actual laser tube. It's a 150-watt laser tube and it has this the coaxial red light. So that is where it's coming right off the end of the tube, and it actually is pretty dang close to being right in line with the actual laser beam. Da, da, da. So down here, this is what the actual controller for the height adjustments when you're doing metal operations. Anything else that we missed in here? I think that's it. But so here's even so compatible software, Lightburn, and LaserCAD. So, and this is specifically for the 150-watt machine. And then it goes into some of the settings for metals and things like that. But so here's the crate, gives you an idea. So width, you're looking 2,233 millimeters. And then total height, so not just to the bottom of the actual where the laser is sitting, but the total height, it's saying 1,240 millimeters. And then the depth, 1,790. I don't know if those are exactly right. I'd have to go back out and measure, but there's a guesstimate of what the sizes are for you. But there you go. So that is the 150 watt, the 100 and the 80 is very similar, but here's our pricing. So we're looking at, $699. This is 180. So obviously when this goes live, it'll break those prices out so you can actually, make a purchase. But I'm guessing that 699 is probably your 80 and then the 100 might be a little bit more because I believe it says starting at. So yeah, starting at 6,999. So you can expect that the 80 will be the lower and the 100 will be higher. And let's just see if there's anything else that they've put down in here. No, basically the same things that we have already covered looking through the flyers. One thing that's not, I mean, here it's talking about cutting this carbon steel. That's not going to happen on the 80 and 100. So just make sure that you don't get tricked by the stainless steel, galvanized steel. Like this is a picture that is for the 150 watt. But there you go. So this is what the head will look like for the 80 and 100. You see how it's just more streamlined, one solid piece rather than having all the extra little things on it. And there's your safety features. So this is the air pressure sensor that I was talking about. Then we're talking, there's a magnetic and interlocks for the door. There you go. So if you do have any more questions or things that I did not cover, please drop them down in the comments so I can jump on them. For this machine, there is going to be a 5% off sale, I believe, that they're advertising. So go on the website. I'll drop that link below so that way you can enter. There's also a giveaway right now. So make sure I'll drop that in the comments or in the description so that way you can enter the giveaway because they're going to give away one of the 100-watt 2440s. So make sure you jump on that so that way you can be part of it or you could at least have the opportunity. If you don't enter, you can't win. So jump down there, do that, and remember, Laser Guys 5 off. Laser Guys 5 off. That is the coupon code for the Laser Guys and me, Bearded Builds. I work with these guys, is a kind of our trio. You can also use Bearded Builds 5 off, but ultimately that is going to save you 5%, and it goes to support me and my content and the Laser Guys as we work together to provide help in the community. So you will be able to use those coupon codes for this purchase so that way you can get additional savings off of whatever other promotions that they're going to offer. So if this video is helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, follow me, whatever the things are, and we will see you on the next one.